Hi everyone, welcome to the Open Buildings Designer Live. This is our 10th session in this series. I'm Beatrix, your host for today's session. For the benefit of those who are joining us the first time, this is a series of LinkedIn Live sessions. Open Buildings Designer is Bentley's BIM tool for AEC industry. It caters to all disciplines that go into a regular building project, architectural, structural, and MEP design. This was formerly called EcoSim. If you t- try if you try to if you try to if you like to try out what you see in the demo today, sorry, you can download your 21-day free trial by scanning the QR code in the top right corner of the window. There will be tips and tricks, user case studies along with it to ensure you gain the most during the trial period. Let's do a quick introducing of today's participants. I'm a sales engineer for Open Buildings. I'm based in Germany and have worked for mechanical and civil industry as well as the automotive industry for a long time. Joining me is our two presenters, Mikael, based in Krakow, and Quentin, based in South Africa. Mikael, I let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michał Sikora. I'm based in Poland. I'm working at Bentley as an application engineer. I deal mainly in ProStructures, but also help with some issues with open buildings. And before working at Bentley, I worked as a structural engineer at Jacobs, where I worked mainly with wastewater treatment projects, doing various structures, design, and both documentation, so drawings and detailing.
Thank you. Quentin?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Quentin Levy from South Africa, based here as a application engineer for Bentley. Currently, I look after ProStructure as well, also assist the guys with Bentley and open buildings in the region, a few other applications as well. But yeah, that's pretty much my purpose at Bentley at this stage.
Thank you both. We will also be able to answer some of your questions posted over LinkedIn today. Please put in your questions in the comment sections. And here are our free email IDs. Feel free to email us should you have any questions for us. In case you have trouble scanning the smaller QR code, here's a larger one. Scan to download your free trial. Like I mentioned, you will receive assistance over email to use the trial effectively. If you, is this the right one? Yes, please. If you're attending this session over LinkedIn Live, do know that the resolution depends on the bandwidth and quality of our internet connection. Some tips. Connecting via the Ethernet cable gives you the best quality in the connection. Do close down any applications that use too much bandwidth. The best resolution is achieved when you are not multitasking while watching the session. Just in case you don't have a good internet connection, the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. Our previous sessions are available there too. That's the link for the YouTube channel. You can see we will post the link in the comments as well. As I saw, maybe Meenakshi did this already. Thanks. BIM, our BIM, or Building Information Modeling, has been a buzzword for the AEC industry for over a decade now. In some instances, it's mandatory to use BIM for new projects. There have been a lot of early adapters to BIM, and they have been reaping benefits over the years, but a large percentage are yet to make the shift completely. In the design phase of any project, where multiple iterations need to be explored and validated, productivity and efficiency are surmount importance. The advantages of BIM modeling and information management during early stages are intangible with returns throughout the project. BIM in the direction BIM is the direction the industry is moving towards, and for some new project it is even mandatory. Using BIM requires a paradigm shift in the workflows of most architects and engineers. This can be a daunting process. Integrating different areas of expertise, architects, engineers, and contractors can achieve a common goal more efficiently and effectively. In this session, we would like to highlight the benefits of modeling steel structures and addresses challenges that may arise during the transition from CAD to BIM. Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We're doing model structural steel elements with BIM properties with fire ratings, generate drawings from 3D model, generate schedules with BIM properties, add structural detailing, and incorporate ProStructures into OpenBuildings Designer. Okay, we're going over to Michael for now. Hold on.
Thank you, Beatrix. Okay, so
Welcome.
welcome to our session. As mentioned, this is a moving from CAD to BIM. So here in CAD and BIM, we are actually doing 3D models with some additional information added into it. And in this particular model, I just started with a grid. So if you want to, and some floor systems. So if you want to know how to do that, I highly recommend going back to one of our previous sessions where that was described in detail. Now let's move to actually adding some columns from the structural tab. We can do that by clicking on the columns tool. And now the ribbon changed a bit. We have some additional tools available to us, like changing the placement options for our columns, the dimensions of those columns. And below our ribbon, we have a family and parts toggles. That's I recommend selecting appropriate families and parts so they're better understood by the software when actually creating drawings automatically. That will be easier with automatic annotations. Now, on the left here, we have a tab that has all the properties, all the building information really that we would need for this particular element, like the section name. So we could change that to a different name. We have a structural finish. Let's say I want a paint and finish on this particular set of columns that I will be placing. So let's do that. Now, we also have some other information. Let's call those columns that I'll be placing type CO1. So that's the ID they will be given. And below that, we have some more information like fire resistance information. Let's add some fire resistance information to our column that because that's maybe our project requirement. There are also many other parameters and properties that we can assign, um, whatever either lead parameters or IFC parameters that would be needed. They're all here, and we can edit them and add them. Now, if I'm happy with my selections, I'll change the placement tool to by grid and the length of our beams to 8 meters, where I will use the intersection points on the grid automatically by fencing over that and selecting our grid. And now just left clicking to accept that, we immediately get all our beams at the required position, just like that. So now with that finished, I right click to accept that if I'm happy with what I modeled. And now it's a good point to actually check if our families and parts are applied correctly. And from the tooltip, I see that they are. We have structural steel columns and columns primary. Now, with that done, I think a good idea is to move to beams. Beams are located on floor one, so I'll just select that to floor one to move my grid system up. Now we will be locked to this level, so 4.5 meters for beams, and I just use the steel beam tool, and it will be similar to what we've done for a column. As ribbon changed, I'll assign proper family being structural steel, just like that. Let's choose primary beams as our part type. Again, on the left side, we have a property window. I'm happy with the section that we're using. I'll just type the ID of that beam for our information and scheduling as BO1. Let's add fire rating as this is a primary beam. Let's add the same fire resistance time as for columns. I'll place that by grid. I'll change my view to the top view. For our convenience of selecting the grids, we can select just parts of grids. So I'll just select the view, and in that view, I just selected only the A, B, C, and D axes. And like that, with a left click, we already have some beams added. Now, I will accept that selection. And because the beams on axis 2 and 1 are of different type, they will have different connections to columns. Let's call them BO2s. Apologies, a little bit of hiccup there. BO2s. Let's add some fire rating as well. It's already been pre-selected because I already placed some beams before, so I didn't need to change that. Let's place that again by grid. And I'll just simply select those grid segments like so, and just left click to accept and place the beams. Okay, and that pretty much completes our main structure, so to speak.
Mikkel, a
Yeah.
question. The secondary beams are still missing. Can you show us how to put them easy in there in the easiest way?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a tool for that.
Mm.
It's called a steel framing tool. It is very easy to use, and in order to place those additional beams between our primary beams on A and B axes, I'll just select that steel framing tool. And now, again, a very similar window to what we had before, uh, but it's a maybe different class of element. It's selected as from Perlin library, but that's really not that important. We have a section name, we have properties, and on the top we have some various data how to input that. I want 5 beams between our beams and no members on the ends, so the beams on 2 and 1 axis are not duplicated. So I'll just select the center point of our beams to be placed by center points. I'll select the beams to be secondary as a family and part. I'll add some additional data. Those will be beams BO3. Apologies. We can also fault the parameters we don't want to see. BO3. We'll maybe put some smaller fire rating for those particular beams since they're secondary. And now it's very easy to actually put that in. We can put in multiple of those beams as once. We prompted to select the first member, and you can see I select the first supporting member. It's highlighted. So put the second one, and like that,
Mm.
we immediately have 5 beams between our main girders on axis 1 and 2, and that's it. That's the
Super.
basic structure for us. Um, Now, with that done, it's a good idea, I think, to start moving on to drawing production. Since we have something already, we can actually start creating drawings that we would find in Drawing Production tab. And I would like to start with a section, so we have something nice. Now, we need to select a drawing seed for the section. This drawing seed actually basically dictates the way um, the elements are recognized and then displayed in our drawing model. Template, we have some drawing seeds or so-called templates available, and we can add more, we can edit them. What I'm doing right now is just making the section how wide I want it, how deep I want it, and another window pops up with all the necessary data that we want to first input about our drawings. So I want to have to name our drawing as a drawing 1 because I want to make a section and a sheet drawing. I can create drawing models. So drawing models are actually a models inside our model where we put the annotations to our elements. We put dimensions, text nodes, whatever we would want, and sheet models. Sheet models are actually the models with actual sheets in them that we would print from. And on the sheet model, we could put multiple drawing models. We could also create sheet models and drawing models as separate files if you would need that. We can also edit scales for details, and we could opt to open the models created automatically or not. Let's just not open that for now. I just click OK, just wait a couple of seconds, and the drawing is done. I didn't open that, so it didn't open automatically, but it's just a matter of actually selecting what I want from a model selector. So we can see that we've created an additional sheet model and a drawing model. Drawing model with a gray icon and sheet model with a paper icon. Let's go to our drawing model first. It's characterized by a gray background typically, and this is where we would put some our annotations. And from that drawing sheet, we and parts and families that we selected, we already have some annotations automatically placed. So that's the section name, that's the those rectangular widgets that symbolize our elements. We also have some dimensions on top automatically placed, and the floor levels from our floor manager. So let's go to the sheet view, and like so, we have a pre-prepared sheet for us. We have some title block that we can fill in with data that's required. And now this is the drawing model that we had previously opened. It's just referenced into the sheet model. So if we go ahead and check our references, there's an additional model that'll be live session, whatever. That's our drawing one reference. Let's move that as a reference to the top of our top of our sheet. Sorry. I'll just do that by using a move reference command. And now, since we have some space, it's a good idea to actually fill that in. So let's go to our drawing model back again. Let's change our view from top to front, like so. And now let's just create a plan view as well. I want to show all the primary and secondary beams that I created. So I select a proper seed file. I go slightly above the first floor level, extend from the outside to the outside of the building. Let's name the section just plan, and that's fine for us. And I don't want to create a new sheet model. I don't need that anymore. We already have a sheet. Let's open that automatically, like so. And like that, we are automatically into our drawing model. So as I mentioned before, we have some automatic annotations. We have our leaders for columns. We have primary and secondary beams named, annotated. We have both the dimensions in the horizontal and vertical direction in this particular model. So now let's put that onto sheet. So it's just as easy as opening our models tab and dragging and dropping that onto our sheet. Um, let's just use recommended attachment method. Now I just center that on our other view, and we have a drawing pretty much ready um, for review, for further editing, uh, just like that. Very quick and easy. It's read from a 3D model that we have, so we're taking advantage of that BIM there. All the elements have their data. But with that done, let's actually talk about that data in our data reporting tab. Let's move and go check the schedules. And now that's something that's advantages of building information modeling, really. So now I'll just, on the left, I have a catalog of all the items that I created in the model. Let's start with beams. And now the data was read from the model, and we have all the information, the properties that we've assigned in our model available here. So the section names, uh, the ID that we put, BO1, BO2, BO3, they're all here. When we scroll further to the right, there will be some additional more data. So basically, whatever we had vertically in that window on the left side of the screen, here it's moving, we're moving that to the right. We have fire rating, 1 hour and 45 minutes as we put that onto our beams. And we have some volumetric data that's automatically calculated. So like gross volume or net volume of our elements. So if we have many bolt holes in our beams or columns, that would also be included in the automatic calculation of that. So that's the advantage, that the software does that for us. There's no need to manually calculate that. Similar case for columns. They're scheduled just in a different as a different item type. We can also export those schedules. We can export them to Excel, text, CSV, HTML format. We can do an Excel exchange. So maybe let's go ahead and export that to Excel now. Let's see how easy that is. Just matter of clicking that icon let's just wait a second. And now we're imported that it was exported successfully. I just click OK, and like that. It's open in Excel. It's basically the same table that we've had before in the schedule, but it's just in a more editable format for us if you would require to for our project. So that's basically the general overview of um, of the basic stuff, really. So thank you for your attention, and I think we can move forward.
Do we have any questions before Quentin continues? I don't think so. Let me see. No, not in the moment. But I have one for you, Mikal. Can we change those widgets in the sections, maybe changing their sizes? Is this
Yes,
possible?
yes, that's possible. So for that, I wouldn't show that today, but I
Yeah.
highly recommend actually checking out the uh, Bentley Open Buildings YouTube channel, where we
Ah,
have
okay.
a whole video
Mhm.
on that. Let me just, I have it jotted down names for some presentations, reference presentation settings.
Okay. Yeah.
That's that's the thing that you would like to look for.
Yeah. Let me see there. Maybe it's another questions. Okay, I will think. Um, we can do that. We can check that later after Quentin does his presentation. So, okay,
I'm
then
I'm willing to answer that question while we have
you
the
will.
question. Yes,
Okay, yeah, you do.
cool.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question is, do we have hatching and patterning when we create these general sections? Yes, it is. You remember in the beginning, Michal showed that you can associate a part and family. So each part and each family is configured with a fixed hatch, a pattern that's associated with it. So the application will then cleverly define between different elements. You know, if you add some concrete in here, it will have the concrete hatching, it will have steel hatching to it, and everything can be customized also. So it's definitely possible with open buildings.
Okay, I hope this question is answered. If not, we will try to do it later on. And we have another one. How to add additional parameters for the sake of LOE addition for certain objects or certain object. Is
So
there?
maybe if we show the next part, it will be a
Okay.
bit more informative. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I will share your screen, Quentin, and
Okay. So Beatrix, what I've done here is I've simplified Michal's model completely down to two basic elements, a column and a beam. Currently, it's configured to wireframe settings, so that's why it is in two different colors. Um, but I've also configured it to show you in three different screens. So in the middle, I have a 3D view or an isometric view, a top view on the right, and a front view focus on the base of the column at this stage. Because we focused on structural engineering for today, and just simply adding columns and beams and secondary beams will probably not meet all the requirements. Adding more detail will be a bit more in line with structural engineering uh, workflow. So getting it from CAD to BIM, Michal has now nicely shown that, but now we need to add some extra properties to the actual model itself. So what we started here, the two different views, and now what I want to do is I want to add a base plate as a starting point to that column. So I simply use the base plate option with the different dimensions predefined, or you can edit them if you want to. You simply select the base of the column. And if you zoom in there, you can see the base has been placed. You can see that it's actually edited the element ever so slightly and then reduced the length. You change the connection to add more detail. So going through those perimeters, perhaps changing the dimensions of the holes, adding additional holes at the base, you'll be able to place a more defined type of base plate than just an empty square that's sitting there at the bottom of the element. And it's interactively changing as you go along. And you can see my base plate has all the configurations in there. There's lots extra also shown in it, but I'm just keeping it to the basics now. Let's do the same to a column and a beam. Now, just out of interest, you'll see that there's an overlap. If you remember the way that Michal has placed it, the overlap
Mhm.
has no issue, or the application has no issue dealing with the overlap because it's currently just dictating position at this stage. So as soon as we start adding an end plate to that beam, you'll be able to see that it actually manages the connection between the two elements. So you select the end plate with those dimensions that you wanted to fed in, select the beam, select the column, and it actually reduces the length of the beam and puts it next to the column. Right click to end that function. Now, if we zoom in and right click again to change the connection, you'll be able to add more detail. Different tabs, different options is now available to you. In this example, I'm just going to add a haunch at the bottom. And you'll see perhaps it's a little bit wide. I can just make it a little bit narrower, reduce the width of it, um, go back to the layout and fix that position of that end plate that we've just placed, maybe increasing the length of it ever so slightly, taking away the offsets or maybe changing the offsets from the top and from the bottom. And then you can see I've just centered my end plate correctly. Add holes to it. I'm going to put 3 bolts in this example, maybe reduce the width in between them. And as soon as I've done that, you see that the bolts have been added. So, that's how simple it is to get all the detail in it. Maybe it would be a bit better if I showed you in a different color. I'm just going to change the display so that you can see it in shadows or shadowed or real time. So now there you can see the bolts, the haunch, the beam, column, everything nicely displayed. But there's now a parent-child relationship created between these two elements. So I'm just going to shift my displays and just keep one in fixed in front view and almost like a semi 3D view, so that I can show you that normally when we edit elements or then there's a review, it changes, we can change the elements, like that. That's very simple, clicking the handles and it will change. But let me undo that and then also do a move perhaps. So now I want to shift it. Now if I shifted it to the right, you'll see that it maintains the connection on the left-hand side. And if I even shift the column from its original position, it will also maintain its relationship between these two elements. So I can then actively maintain the connection between these two, everything that's associated with base plate, the end plate. If I put it back into its original place, constantly it's adapting to the changes or the revisions that I'm doing to that basic element that I have in place. So what if I added extra columns into it? So if I add a different one in the same plane, I would simply use AccuDraw O for origin, click it there at the base of that place, shift it along the X axis. I'm deliberately putting it away from the current beam. And just to show you that it is in the same plane, I'm just going to change it to a top view so you can see it's all in line. I'm going to add extra beam also to this model of mine to show you that alignment is important, but not necessarily connection, because the application manages the connection between them. Use AccuDraw to place them. So now I've got 2 beams, 2 columns in my little model, and I want to connect these as I continue forward. So again, end plate is the option that I would enable. I would select the beam and then the column. It extends it and it places those end plates for me. Now, what's really nice about the application is you don't have to configure each end plate every time as you place it. You can simply just go back to the original one that I've created, change connection, and we have the option here to use templates. So I can save the configuration as a template by clicking new, call this bottom haunch with 3 bolts or whatever the naming convention you would prefer to remember it, and save that template. And now simply just close that original configuration, jump back to the new end plates that I've just added, right click, change connection, and template, add the template, and then you'll see it's been added. So I can do that with all my connections, and the connection has already been it's standardized now, so I can just apply it going forward using my template as a guide to get everything in place. Now, what's really nice is it keeps that parent-child connection between multiple elements as well. So in revision, I want to shift the position of the column. I can do that. I can simply just move it. So that you can see if I shift it to the left, it shortens the one beam, lengthens the other beam. And if I move it again, it keeps on maintaining that connection between the two elements, which makes life a lot easier when it comes to all the different revisions that I need to do throughout my process. Now, this is one of the we're almost getting to the end of open buildings capabilities. So, for a structural engineer, maybe they would want to add more detail to this model at this stage. And as Bentley, we would like to bring all our applications a little bit closer, and introducing ProStructure into the background as it is now. It's simply there as extra feed that you can put into it. In future, ProStructure will be featured more to the foreground in OPD, so you'll be able to actually click on a ProStructure function and then go forward. But currently, it's available on a key-in basis, so you need to use a key-in, then it will initiate ProStructure functionality built into it. So let me show you how to do that. So when you use the key-in function, you can type in ProSteel, a division of ProStructure, and then place will give you the option to place different types of elements or add different features like joists, trusses, stiffness. There's quite a list of things that works, but because it's currently in the background, it's just been recently added to the application. Some of them don't work so nice. But there's also a create option that's been added, where this is more a dialog that adds multiple at the same time. So if we, for instance, use stiffness through a distribution, so just going down there, select that option. Now you'll see that this little pop-up appears. Now with this little pop-up that appeared, it notifies the user that you need to activate ProStructure. Now just note to everybody, when you activate ProStructure within Open Buildings, you're actually checking out a license of ProStructure while you have OBD open at the same time. So now you're actively using two licenses of our applications. So that's the warning that it's giving you there. So please just be aware of that as it indicates over there that you are consuming another license of ProStructure. So I'm going to go ahead and activate it. So now if I select that beam, I can add a distribution of stiffness along the element. And by using the utility, I can see that number 2, number 3 is on the start end. I can change the dimensions, maybe reduce it, increase the amount of stiffness that needs to be placed. And then I have my different, by just updating the review, I can visually see now that it's been fixed and apply those changes that I want to. Now, this is not just limited to horizontal sections. I can do it to vertical sections as well. So if I select that column, same there, I can just change the values and maybe reduce the count in this case, update the preview, and it updates it for me and accept it. All of these ProStructure elements that we add into the modeling in OBD, you can't just delete it. You need to actually delete connection. So you right click and you say delete connection, and it will pop up with a warning and it'll tell you it's going to remove everything, and that's what you want to do. So you right click, you say delete connection, and it deletes the connection that you've just created for it. Now, as I said, it keeps ProStructure active. Now, how do we deactivate the ProStructure? Same way, you need to go into a key in, type in PS main, licenses, and then select. And as soon as you select, you'll be able to deactivate ProStructure at that point. So that stops it until the further. So by deactivating it, by clicking that button, next time when I open up Open Buildings, it won't initially check out that new version, I mean that extra license of ProStructure. So you can basically manage what you want to put in and pull out with ProStructure by using those simple keyings. If you don't do that and you just simply close Open Buildings, next time when you open up Open Buildings, that license will also be checked out as you go along. Now, if you simply progress with this and you apply this type of thinking, you can do it to the complete model. Taking the one that Michal has just done, adding more detail to everything, you can get to a model like this where you've added all your connections. You'll note that all the connections has all its bolts in place, your braces are in place, your haunches, stiffeners, trusses. But it doesn't just end there. We have those sections created through Michal and the plan view already created. I can simply just jump into those again and then update them. So let me jump into the drawing. So here you can see it updates it. I've added an extra little bit of detail on that connection. So there's my detail. Has all the bolts in. I can just add my dimensions, as Michal said. But my basic stuff is all done for my drawing. I even have my trusses in display. So the idea is to add the detail to the 3D model. As you add detail to the 3D model and you have all your views set up afterwards, or your sections created, then it will update accordingly. So there you can see the little, it's not so clear, but you can see the stiffness, there's the haunches, and there's all the bolts at that specific plane. So with open buildings, going from CAD to a BIM environment, it's easy. You add all those extra content into that, and you also get a full preview of your 3D model as is. And then the other advantage that you get is that it constantly updates your drawings, keeps the BIM information in there, and you can really detail it from a structural perspective. So hopefully with this presentation, we have now covered everything that a structural engineer would be interested, from creating a simple model and then all the way through to a complex 3D model.
Thank you, Quentin. This was really nice overview for that. Are there any questions? I saw that Raghuram answered that one, what we had before. He put in the answers in the comment section, and there is nothing in the moment. Do you think we missed something? I don't think so. And to
Mm,
summarize, yeah.
yeah, maybe just one question that might be worth mentioning. How,
Yeah.
when we have all that structural detail added in, how easy it is to shift stuff around for say, a revision or whatnot?
Okay, cool. That's a good question, Michal. So, in the example that I gave, it was simple elements aligned with each other. When I start shifting a complex amount of models or elements at that stage, it doesn't always keep the alignment so nice, because if I have to do, for instance, the connection of the A axis, then everything needs to shift. I will not recommend that. It's not a good way of doing it, but possibly at a stage in the beginning when you need to do those revisions, make sure that those dimensions are correct before you add those additional detailing, because it will have a ripple effect on the amount of um, support that I would need. So rather do that, a little bit earlier in your design process, and then tackle that before you add a detailing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's important to mention.
Okay.
Beatrix,
So
maybe we should just re-emphasize the licensing process. If we can
yes,
just go through that,
I
that would be a
go
good
over
way.
that. Yeah, you will share it. Should I talk about it? If you how we do, we
I,
can do
I will
that
talk if you
together.
can just do the clicking for me. So,
I will.
no problem. So we can add detailing through ProStructure, incorporating it into OpenBuilding. There's specific elements like stiffness that we can add, trusses we can add, and these are joist elements that come from ProStructure, purlins, and also dynamic bracing that could be done. So these are typical functions that do work within OpenBuildings at this stage. But be aware of the fact that through a key in is the way that you get these things. Like I use ProStructures, ProSteel creates stiffness distribution through the key in. That's what it looks like. You can just simply select or press enter at this stage, and then it activates that license. So take awareness of the fact that you'll be consuming another ProStructure license at the same time when you click activate. So that will actually bring in ProStructure into OpenBuildings, and it will keep it active. It will remain in the background for you until you run the next keying. There we go. So PS main license select, and then you will deactivate it until you choose to have it active again. So just be aware of those two things, that otherwise you will be perhaps over consuming in the amount of licenses that's available to you as a user, but the option is still available to use one platform for multiple products at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Mikal, thank you, Quentin, for this helpful information. I hope our audience gets to try this out. Any questions? No, there are no more questions in the moment. Okay. Then we go over. I'd like to direct everyone to some high quality learning content for Open Buildings Designer to help you on your learning journey. We have focus webinars, as you can see in the list here. Like I mentioned earlier, we also have a YouTube channel dedicated to Open Buildings Designer with ever-growing playlists for the different disciplines. You do check these out and subscribe to be notified of new content being posted. Let us know if you have any questions in the comment sections again. If you have any product-related queries, please do visit the Bentley Communities page. The application engineers will be able to assist you there. Eduardo and team have put together digital manual for Open Buildings Designer and on the Bentley's community. This is perfect for those of you who are onboarding to Open Buildings Designer or using the trial. You can scroll by discipline here. Also, we now have, or it's a while in the meantime, a LinkedIn group to stay updated on events, tips and tricks, product updates, etc. So do take a moment to join the Inside Open Buildings LinkedIn group. And if you already made experiences with Open Buildings Designer, we would pleased if you leave a review here. Okay. Let's see if we have any more questions from the audience. No, everything's fine. That's all we have for today. Thank you again for joining, for making time to join us. And thank you again, Quentin, Mikal, and thank you, Meenakshi, in the background, who's really doing a good job for us. And yes, meanwhile, do try out our software using the QR code to download the 21-day trial of Open Buildings Designer. And thank you for attending, everybody. And thank you, Quentin, Mikal, and Meenakshi again. And wish you a nice day. Stay tuned and goodbye.
Thanks,
Hopefully.
guys. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Goodbye. Bye.
Goodbye.
Cheers.